So you're either in two places right now. You either have an eWebinar account to set up your automatic webinars, and you also are a Keap user, and you haven't integrated it yet, or you are evaluating if eWebinar will work great with your Keap account. In today's video, by the end of this, you will have a better understanding of what it can do when pairing with Keap. Now, first off, I am over the moon excited about what they have put together from a automatic webinar standpoint as a product with eWebinar, but this video is not talking about all the features and functions. That is in a separate video. Today we're going to talk about how do you integrate it and what can you do. Now, if you are a Keap user, you will be familiar with this right here. This is basically a campaign that I have set up that I use with my clients and myself for eWebinar. And this is taking into account several things, and I'm just showing you this here because you may want to emulate this or this kind of structure if you are setting up your eWebinar account. So what we have is we have tags. This is how the connection works. It does fire tags at certain events, one for registrations, one for when they join, and then one here for when they missed. But we also have sub-event tags for if they left before 10% of the webinar, left before 50, watch more than 50, watch more than 75, and watch more than 90. Now you can change these to be any percentage you want. And what I'd recommend is based off of key milestones or markers in your webinar, you would have them replicate that. So for example, if at like 60% of the webinar, you have a really key point that you said, okay, if they made it to this point and then they watched more, then we know what they're going to, what they would have seen at that point, right? So that's kind of what we're saying with this, but, and then these are blank at the moment because there's nothing in there. Now, this part here, this is key because these will start to stack, right? So in here, if they watch more than 50%, it will apply that tag to them, and then it could fire that action. But if it gets to the 75% point, then it'll apply the 75%, and then in here, it'll remove in the sequence the 50%. So that's what's happening is it's just stacking so those follow-ups will happen properly. But let's hop right into eWebinar and let's look at how this all works. Now, I have just been starting to set up a new webinar for myself, so I'm going to show you in here what you can actually do. So we're going to go into the editing phase of this. And before we actually start to connect those different events with the integration, let's talk about the interactions side. Now, clear out of the board, registration and joined, that's pretty clear what that means. When they fill out the registration form to join, it'll apply that tag and pass that information over. When they join the webinar, and the reason that's important is because it is an evergreen webinar system, and they could do their just in now fee or just in time feature, which allows them to join almost immediately, or they set a date and time for the future. So we want to know when they join in there. But the other cool part is throughout the actual webinar, you have the ability to ask poll questions and gain some information, so they can answer random questions here, or there's some text boxes that they could fill out. But each of those in-game or interactions gives you an integrations tab, which allows you to give this block a property name. So for this one here, I've called it customer experience. So I could call this webinar, and I'll do _ customer experience. Now we can't put any tag or any spaces in here, so we're just going to add that and we're going to save it. And you can do that for different ones in here. That's a private message. We won't do for that one, but there are certain ones in here where we're asking like a question here. So where are you joining from? So it could go in here and put that in there as well. So you do that throughout your whole webinar as you build it. Then when you get over to your settings tab, there's a tags and integration section. Keeping in mind that eWebinar has their own internal tagging system, but if you're integrated with Keap, there's a secondary tagging system in which you can utilize. So I have one webinar set up. I just labeled it marketing. This here is a tag for eWebinar. Now let's go down to the integrations, which is fairly easy to connect. When you get to here, you have your Keap sign in automatically signed in. You click connect, pops up the blocks. You pick your app, just standard like when you're integrating with all other systems. So let's look at a trigger. Now the trigger allows you to fire actions based off of different things. So let's go ahead and look at the list of triggers. There's new registration, there's joined, there's left before X%, stayed for X%, attendee watched a replay for X%, missed a webinar, unsubscribed, converted, and we'll talk about that in a minute, webinar finished, right? And then any registrant updates that are here. So for example, if you're going to do the new registration, you're going to click on that. And then here it says only for webinars with this tag. This is where you're able to, when you set up your webinars, tag them internally with any webinar so that if you have multiples in here, you can have these automations run just for that one webinar versus all webinars that are happening. So what we're going to do is not choose anything from that list. Then down here where you see tags, this is where you're going to then pick your tag. Now this is pulling a list of all the tags from your connected Keap account. So what we're going to do here is when we look at my template that I had, I just created these kind of naming conventions. So where is it here? Registered. So I would recommend you do webinar dash the name of it dash registered. Just keep it clean and consistent. So this was pushed in from my template into my app. So I could choose that. And then that would be applied in here when somebody registers. So there's nothing else that's going to be pushed over from a custom field variable sense because it's just a registration. You're getting their name, their email, everything that's from the registration form is going to be pushed over. And you can say save and connect, and then that adds it to the list. Now let's go look at those percentage ones. So we're going to trigger it here, say left before, and we're going to say 10%. And again, if you were doing individual webinars, you would choose the internal tag for that one. But we're going to go down here and we're going to choose list, webinar left before 10%. But highly recommend that you're setting up your tags in your Keap account before you go and do this process because you can't add them in this interface here to your Keap account. So doing it beforehand is going to be key. So we're going to save and connect with that one. Now, when we get to the finish line here, there's one here that says webinar finished. And in that case, what you can do here is add mapping. Unless you knew exactly when the questions were asked within the webinar that you've set up, it's best to actually use this on a finish tag so that once the webinar finishes, it'll go back and pull over any of those custom variables that we want to have happen. So we're going to go down here. We're going to select from, these are all the different variables. So there's the actions here, the watch, left, join. You could push those into custom fields. And keeping in mind, you do need to have the custom fields set up in your Keap account to push this data into. So we're going to go down, selected. You can have the link to add to cart. So if you want to send that out by email or text, you can actually put the link to the webinar and pass it over to a custom text field. Registration ID, city IP, converted in here, county ID or country ID, sorry. And then when did they register, device time, when they're watching, email. So all this data you can pull across. Now we're just going to keep going down. Data time left, number of likes, moderator's email. So we're going to keep going. I'm sure it's probably at the very bottom. Oh, maybe not. There it is right here. So here's that poll, right? The customer experience. So I would select that. And then it says select the field. These are all my different custom fields. Now, I have not gone ahead and created a customer experience custom field in my Keap account at this time. I just put that in there just for this demo. But you could choose any custom field here. So here's one. And then you can map another one. So very functional in the way that you can pass data that's coming across in real time from your webinars. You could also set this up so that instead of when it's finished, it could be at those other markers, like when they left. So if you knew if at the 10% there was a question prior to that you want it pushed across, you could stack that on that when they left at 10% one. You don't have to do it on the webinar finished one. So there's a lot that you can actually do. Now, let me just delete that here. Actually, I just deleted my whole Keap integration there. So let's go ahead back here. There we go. And we'll go sign into Keap. It's gonna, let me just find my app. So pretty easy how to make those connections. There we go. And then we can set it back up. So we'll go trigger. Webinar joined. I'm just going to put in one here. I'm going to use my main one that I have. Just join there. So that's the one that I'm using. Okay, just so it's connected. Now, let's go back and look at the actual webinar setup. So in your interactions, if let's say you have an offer. So in this one here, I have a free consult. So click here if you'd like to book a free consult. And then it actually takes you to my page on my website that has a booking form on it. In here, there's conversion tracking on this. So which means that I would just need to put this pixel on that page, right? Not in the header of the page so it's across all the website, but just on that page. If you've got an HTML editor, WordPress, or anything like that, you can actually just put it into HTML mode and paste that in there. What it's going to do, it's going to look for somebody who is in this webinar firing that pixel tracking when they click that link. And then you could actually have a Keap event run on the integration based off a conversion. So you know that somebody has gone to the page. Now in this case, I wouldn't really necessarily want to put it on this part here. I would want to put it on the thank you page of whatever this is. So if it's a free ebook that you're giving away during your webinar, or in this case, a consultation when they book, the thank you page that loads, that's where you want that to fire, because that is essentially the truest form of a conversion. So really cool in what you can do in the integration side, the conversion tracking here. And again, you could have stuff carry across here if it was a question or whatever have you. So the integrations, from my opinion, of what eWebinar can do, takes it from the standard stuff that you would expect in a webinar platform, from registrations and all that tagging and all those elements, but being able to pass over the elements from the webinar in the questions that come up automatically that are here, and then also fire on conversions, is where they have taken it to the next level. In my opinion, this is solely my opinion, you can have a different one, but I've seen a lot of different webinar platforms, a lot of eWebinar platforms. If you aren't doing your webinars live and you don't want to, and you want to provide it in a recorded format, this hands down takes the cake from a system that'll allow you to do that. Okay. Now, just before I wrap up, the other thing that I really enjoy about this, and there's two things actually, is the fact that in the integration side, not only can you integrate with your Keap account, but you can integrate with Slack, Twilio, Zapier if you want to run other Zaps on certain things. And if you are having a different system aside from Keap, or a different CRM that integrates, you can run Zaps off the same type of events and then do that integration separately. Okay, so you're not limited or bottlenecked into one of the ones that are natively integrated. But what I like about with the Slack connection is in that automatic webinar, you can have people chatting with you and it will come through Slack, and you can reply back through Slack, and it will come into the live chat as well. So that's the one thing that I really like about that part. And the other thing is the ability to easily add these registration widgets. You can have embed forms, you got fixed bars, buttons, pop-ups that show up on the screen, or cards in the blog. So on our website, you can have the webinar pop-up that's here, or if you're into one of our blogs, I'll just see if it shows up in this one here. No, let me go to one that's not the podcast. Just see if I put it in this webinar. Yeah, so here it is here. So yeah, you just get the code, pops in here, and it has a live countdown for people to register. They can click, pops up, choose the sessions that are running today or any date in the future. And it's easy as that. It's clean, and it works really well with any site that you're using. So in the link below this video, I have a link to eWebinar as well as my contact information. If you would like to if you're a Keap user and you would like this campaign structure pushed into your app, just send me an email or use the link below this video. Let me know your app name. Obviously have to add me as a partner to that, and then I can push the structure into this. But in reality, if you just took a screenshot of this, you could build this out yourself. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of complexity here. So if you liked the video, you found some value in this, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I wish you all the best in building out your eWebinar.